Hello, I'm Liliana Clavijo from la Universidad del Valle in Cali, Colombia.
And I am Felipe Hernandez from the Department of Architecture at the University of Cambridge. We are going to present our paper entitled Collective Constructions, Decolonizing Art and Public Space in Cali, Colombia, for the Activism and Collective Practice section of Worldviews.
On Wednesday, 28 April 2021, a group of indigenous Misak from southwestern Colombia broke down the statue of Sebastián de Belalcázar, the Spanish conquistador credited with the foundation of Cali in 1536. The statue was made in 1937 by Victorio Macho, a Spanish sculptor who lived briefly in Colombia during the Franco dictatorship and found work in the Americas by virtue of being European. Macho was a male, white, Spanish, and formally trained artist who received the commission to make the commemorative statue from a group of líderes sociales, white, mestizo, economically affluent entrepreneurs who wanted to cement their social status by associating themselves with the Spanish conquerors and their culture. Deposing the statue was a significant symbolic act with the aim of bringing awareness to a number of important issues. First, the fact that the conquest needs to be explored no longer as a harmonious moment of encounter and cultural advance, but rather as a violent, indeed brutal, act of expropriation. Also, that the foundation of cities in the 16th century converted Colombia's indigenous populations, former owners and residents of the land, into minorities, pagans, backward, and indeed savages, which are the reasons why they continue to be discriminated against today. The statue stood on a pedestal, and the surrounding terrace provides an observation platform, which remains one of the city's most representative images. However, it is worth mentioning that the statue is located in one of Cali's most affluent areas, as shown in the map produced by Ángela Franco of Universidad del Valle. The neighborhood is one of the three most expensive pieces of real estate in Cali, and is mostly residential. This is important because, as such, it already excludes racial minorities and the poor, who have suffered multiple forms of exploitation and abuse since colonial times. Just as the Spanish conquistadors saw indigenous people as pagan, backward, and savages in need of cultivation, local residents who identify themselves with the conquistador described the deposition of the statue as an act of vandalism, an affront to their social authority. Paradoxically, the response of both the government and the elites were more violent than the mere desecration of the statue. The central government responded by deploying tanks on the streets of Cali and Bogota, as well as helicopters to pursue protesters. In Cali, residents of one of the city's most affluent neighborhoods, civilians went to the streets and shot at the protesters with firearms. Other affluent residents rammed indigenous people with their cars, As such, the government and socio-political elites, which intersect largely, emphasize the fortuitous nature of the acts performed by the demonstrators but refuse to engage with the fundamental cause of the demonstration: sustained inequality, injustice, and discrimination. Refusal to engage with the causes of the strike concealed the historical violence against which the protester demonstrated and wished to change. As the influential sociologist Paulo Freire once explained, quote, "The dominant elites consider the remedy to be more domination and repression carried out in the name of freedom, order, and social peace. That is the peace of the elites. Thus, they can condemn logically from their point of view the violence of a strike by workers and can call upon the state in the same breath to use violence in putting the strike down." Unquote. In Colombia, however, the elites did not call upon the state to exercise violence on the demonstrators, but also took matters in their own hands brutally to end the demonstration by killing the demonstrators, by dehumanizing the indigenous, the Black, and the poor, thus continuing exacerbating colonial violence.
The national strike in Colombia provided a space for the emergence of voices that had seldom been heard, or at least not that loud. It gave dramatic visibility to the sustained conditions of socioeconomic exclusion and exploitation suffered by ethno-racial minorities and the poor in Colombia. During the strike, these groups developed complex and convincing agendas to address colonial violence and to rewrite a history that has rendered them peripheral to the country's politics, culture, and economy. In their own words,
nosotras y nosotros, autoridades indígenas del Saco Conacha, en el ejercicio de nuestra autoridad, autonomía, autodeterminación, obedeciendo el mandato colectivo de nuestros antepasados, nos permitimos informar que tenemos una responsabilidad ancestral de limpiar y procurar la sanación de todas aquellas heridas coloniales. Esto es un imperativo en este momento histórico que se pretende construir con la fuerza de la gente y un poder popular colectivo. Declaramos que la historia es un dispositivo de poder, contada desde la voz de los opresores. Por tal razón, nos hemos visto abocados a organizar nuestra acción política ancestral respecto a reconfigurar el pasado colonial que refleja ideologías, prácticas y acciones que buscan aniquilar lo diverso, los que opinan diferente y los que disienten. Esta es la política paramilitar y parapolicial que levanta sus armas contra el pueblo y hoy dejan asesinados y desaparecidos. Aunque los académicos y los conocedores de la historia oficial afirman con vehemencia que la historia no puede cambiar, nosotros y nosotras creemos que lo que tenemos todo por reescribir desde las narrativas que han visto invisibilizadas y oprimidas. Nosotras y nosotros.
Along with this kind of public statements, the MISAC also performed symbolic acts such as erasing the names of Spanish conquistadors and renaming urban spaces such as squares, streets, and streets using indigenous names. Let us now draw attention to a parallel event: the erection of an alternative monument in a deprived and enormously diverse area of the city. The site is located on the southeastern part of Cali, specifically on a busy street junction known as Puerto Rellena. Rellena is the name of a typical dish, a kind of black pudding that is grilled on the side of the road by local residents, for drivers from all over the city who stop to enjoy portions of this dish on the roadside. As such, it could be argued that Puerto Rellena is more a point of encounter than Belalcázar, which lies on a more homogeneous neighborhood. While Puerto Rellena is on a flat part of the city and therefore cannot be seen from afar, more people visit the junction daily than the Western Hills. Since the sculpture was completed, the junction was named Puerto Resistencia. Protesters erected the new monument in Puerto Resistencia between 26th May and 13th June 2021. The sculpture was collectively produced resembling a hand that holds the word resist, which is why it became known as Monumento a la Resistencia. Unlike Belalcázar, a state-sponsored statue conceived by a single male formally trained European sculptor, the new monument was co-produced by anonymous artists, engineers, and volunteer builders with donations in kind from the general public, donations that came from the whole country, not only from within Cali. The Monumento a la Resistencia stands to represent the unwritten histories of indigenous people and the histories of slavery, so firmly attached to Valle del Cauca, a region whose wealth derives from the cultivation of sugarcane since the 16th century. The video shows the great number of artists who were invited to participate in the construction and of the sculpture, and the different styles that are used and media that is used in order to decorate the hand of the monument. There were trained artists, there were graffiti people, there were men, women of all ages who participated in the construction of this hand, which now stands in the middle of Puerto Resistencia. The monument pays homage to leaders of minority communities who died defending their cause. It also reproduces indigenous, African, and popular imagery in colorful combinations. Animals draw attention to the importance of environmental agendas for indigenous people. The pot held by a woman at the base of the sculpture represents collectivism and the role of women in society. In fact, the main image at the center of the arm is a woman known as La Mamita, or the Little Mother, who overlooks and protects all people, while the eyes of a panther and an eagle, symbolizing nature, look after her. There are also faces of protesters who were apprehended, some tortured by the police, and women who were raped by officers of the law. At the bottom of the sculpture, there is a huge sign that reads, "Aquí corrió el ESMAD, porque el pueblo se armó de valor." ESMAD, which stands for Escuadrón Móvil Antidisturbios, is the branch of the police in charge of containing the protest that has been accused of police brutality, racism, and other forms of discrimination. Cali's white mestizo elite condemned the MISAC for desecrating the image of the founder as an act of vandalism, and expressed their rejection of the new monument, demanding its demolition. Although the local government has declined the request, this conflict reveals the prevalence of colonial structures in today's society, a desire to oppress minorities and to silence their voices by any means necessary, rather than addressing the disparities that lie at the center of the protests. We maintain that the violence assigned to the indigenous MISAC is an expression of indignation by the dominant white mestizo elite, who see their authority debased and their socio-historical standing threatened. As a result, they seek to reassert their dominant position through violence against the indigenous peoples themselves, as well as by destroying the newly erected symbol of resistance against oppression. We want to pose the notion that both the toppling of Belalcázar's statue and the erection of a collectively built 10 meter high sculpture represents the emergence of a collective revolutionary practice in the best spirit of decolonial practice. The idea that a monument built in order to celebrate the foundation of the city by a European conquistador, indeed a statue designed by a single white male traditionally trained artist, has been displaced by a collectively built sculpture, which does not fit perfectly within academic parameters of artistic judgment, serves as a fundamental precedent to review the terms in which we approach art, architecture, and urban practice in Colombia. Indeed, it raises questions about the artist or the architect as the producers of art and architecture, advancing the possibility to think about entire communities as creators of artwork that resignifies urban space in the post-colonial Colombian city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.